Today's tidbit is brought to you by corporate sponsors Bullock First, Talby, Rushing, Snipes, Marsh, and Hodgkin, and Joe Westerfield CPA. Our society depends on corporate members to provide us with projects just like these tidbits. What does the dictionary, or now Wikipedia, say about a postcard? Well, it's a rectangular piece of cardboard which is intended to send a short message by mail. The first postcards were introduced around 1850. I began really collecting postcards of Statesboro in my 30s. So for about 30 years, I've been looking high and low for a picture on cardboard that tells the early story of my hometown. I now have over 200 different images of Statesboro, Bullock County, and Georgia Southern. These are two of my favorite Statesboro postcards. Of course, they are both hand-colored, as Statesboro never had a rainbow alley like Charleston. You see men in straw hats, open and covered automobiles, and a horse and buggy, all meandering up North Main Street. The courthouse has a wonderful granite post and iron rail fence around its square. The sidewalks were covered, and we see many beautiful brick facades. In 1917, Statesboro residents voted unanimously to issue bonds for paving streets and for making improvements to the light and the water plant. Out of 264 votes, only 3 voted against these forward-thinking projects. The Bank of Statesboro, the Sea Island Bank, and the First National Bank purchased the bonds for a total of $62,000. On Monday, February the 18th, 1918, the contract for paving the 4 main streets of Statesboro was let to J.B. McCrary Company of Atlanta. The bid was for $53,800. Paving went as far north as the First Baptist Church and as far south as the First Methodist Church. Very shortly after this, something bad happened. A list was published of 67 names of Statesboro and Bullock County men that were called into service because of World War I. Because the sentiment developed of needing men and materials for the war effort, there was a delay of the street paving project. However, again on November the 11th, 1918, President Woodrow Wilson issued a formal proclamation that the armistice with Germany had been signed. So, in February of 1919, the workers were back paving our streets downtown. The sidewalks of Statesboro were paved before the roads. The first sidewalk was laid in 1910 and included the land on the north side of East Main between the courthouse and the Central Georgia Depot. The pavers were 6-sided and were manufactured right here in Statesboro. I'm fortunate to have several of these at my home on Savannah Avenue, and here's a picture of them. The post office was established at Statesboro, Statesboroughh, on June the 11th, 1823. This was before the railroads came to town, and all mail came on horseback or stagecoach. It was around 1873 that mail service was improved to the point that the town began to receive mail once a week. An article in the Statesboro News published in 1913 states that the post office was first established in connection with a whiskey store, yes, a saloon, right here in Statesboro. In those days, little attention was paid by Uncle Sam to the furnishing of the mail facilities to a people who didn't need it and weren't in a position to appreciate it. It was 1880 that daily mail service was established for Statesboro. This beautiful building was erected in 1917 as our federal post office, and it cost $50,000. At the dedication ceremony, the cornerstone was filled with copies of local newspapers, citizens' cards, and a telephone directory. It is built in the federal style, which evolved from early colonial architecture. This is seen in the decorative keystone and lintels, the Greek key ornament, the Doric columns, the fan light, and the classical balustrade atop the cornice. Beautiful building. The lumber and the naval stores industries were very prevalent in Statesboro beginning in the late 1800s. J.P. Williams and B.T. Outland came from North Carolina in the 70s and were pioneers in these industries locally. J.P. Williams Company opened in Savannah in 1879, and most of the naval stores produced in Bullitt County were sold through this company to be shipped all over the United States and to Europe. He bought timber cheap and accumulated over 700,000 acres, and this led him to go into the railroad business. I end this with a postcard that Gordon Simmons sent to my grandmother Franklin in 1907. It is of the Simmons building at the intersection of South and West Main. He states on the card to Grandmama, "This is where I spend my happy days." I want to echo Mr. Simmons and say the exact same thing about my hometown of Statesboro. This is where I spend my happy days. Thanks for sharing your time with me today, and until next week, bye.